Okay, welcome back everyone to our continuation of our Motzi Shabbos marathon. The Gemara is addressing over here where Berish is giving the flask to Marshall, the grocer. Ela Amar Rava, 4 lines from the top of Peches Amar Aleph. Ela Amar Rava, Ani va'arisha b'chabura. I and the lion of the Beis HaMedrash. Gimnuha, explain it. Who's the lion of the Beis HaMedrash? What we called the big man on campus, BMC, big man on campus. Omanu Rab Zera. Who is that Rab Zera? Rav is calling Rab Zera the lion of the Chabura. Marshall took it from the child to measure something for Abi. Now that's a shoyel shaloi midas, because Berish never gave him permission to do that. Ub'shoyel shaloi midas kamiflagi. And the question is, one who borrows without permission, how far does his liability extend? He's just a borrower. A borrower, as soon as he gives it back to the child, his liability is ended. Oh, he's a thief. A thief has to make sure that the it's not enough to give it back to a child. Then he would have to return it to Berish. Now, Gufa, on our stops, we said a law that if you take something from a craftsman to inspect, you become responsible. So says the Gemara, thank you very much. It looks delicious. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvaro. Gufa. Amar Shmuel. Hanoitel keli min ha'umen levakroi. If, let's say, Abi takes a utensil from Marshall to inspect it, v'nenes biyadai, and an accident happened, chayiv. Oh, but that's only if he knew the price. He takes this pickleball racket from Marshall, wants to inspect it, see if it's heavy, to see the grip, to see how wide the grip is, wants to see the how coarse is the surface of the paddle, to see if he could get a good spin on it. You know, Abi is doing an inspection. Abi's a businessman. Right? So anoitim and kelim and omer lavakrim and nenes biyadichai, but hani mili hu dekitzei damer. But that's only if the price was fixed. He knew it was a very good racket, and he told him it's $180. Ho Gavra, the ol lebeit tafchi, went into the butcher shop. Agva atmo de bisra, he picked up a thigh of meat. Bahadi de Agva, when he picked it up, also parsha, a robber came. Parsha is a person on a horse, a horseman, right? So the horseman came, marmamine, he lifted it from him. Also, they came to Rav Yemer. They came before Rav Yemer. He said that the person, since he knew the price of the thigh, he has to pay. And that's only if he knew the price. Another case. There was a person that brought gourds. It wasn't Halloween, but he brought gourds to Pomnara. And there was a run on him, and many people took a gourd, and he got overwhelmed, and he felt that people are just going to go away with it. So Asakuli al Mishkol Kara Kara, they took, each one grabbed the pumpkin. He got overwhelmed, and he said, Amalu Ariyin Mukdoshin L'Shamayim. Let them be sanctified to heaven. Says the Gemara, Asal Kamid Rav Kana, since each one picked it up and they knew that he was selling it for $5 a gourd, so therefore they acquired it. Therefore he can't dedicate it, because each one that picked it up, just like he's responsible for it, he acquires it. But that's only if they knew it was $5 per gourd. Then it would be hektish. It's in the possession of the owner, and then it would all be hektish.
They'll have to give it back to him.
Huh?
Everybody would have to give
Everybody would have to give
it
it back. It's hektish. Tan Rabbanan. Halokeach Yerek min hashuk. A new case. So we welcome in Dr. Guy. People are arriving slow tonight. But as I said in this year, whenever you come, that's the rule of this year. Come even the last minute. Michal Abram is driving back. He's hurrying up. He's in his spaceship trying to get back.
Bring a note.
Huh? I don't even believe your note. I don't even believe your note. Anyway, drive carefully, keep your eyes on the road. Tan Rabbanan. Halokeach Yerek min hashuk. If let's say Aaron is buying vegetables from the marketplace. Now Aaron is picky. He wants his he wants his vegetables to be firm, yet supple. He's picky how he picks his vegetables. Ubirer v'haniach, he selects them and puts them down. Afilu kol hayom kula, even if he's doing this throughout the day. He's in a farm. There's a very nice farm near the yeshiva in Kragston, Kelder's farm. So he went and he picked his corns, and he picked his radish, and you could pick different tomatoes, and he puts it on the side. So the Gemara says, Afilu kol hayom kula, even if he does it throughout the day, loy kana, he doesn't acquire it, v'loy nischayev b'maiser, and it doesn't become chayev b'maiser. Gamar b'libay liknaisei, but once he makes up his mind to acquire it, in other words, if he put the stuff aside and made up his mind to acquire it, then kana, he acquires it, v'nischayev b'maiser, and it becomes chayev b'maiser. Now here the Gemara says as follows. L'achziro yefsher, to return it to the seller, he can't do it, because it already became chayiv v'maiser, so he's not returning him stuff the way he picked it up. Shekvar is chayiv v'maiser. Ula asro yefsher, to take off the maiser and then return it, that wouldn't be fair, because then he wouldn't be returning what he took. He would be returning less than what he took. Shekvar mafchis and bedam, and he made it worth less by separating the maiser. Okay, so what would he have to do if he wants to return it? He would have to take off ma'asr, he would have to take off the truma, he would have to take off the maiser rishon, he would have to take off, if it's the third and sixth year, the maiser ani, the rest of the year is maiser sheni, and then he returns it v'noisen like the maiser, and he compensates him for the value that he took off for the maiser. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. Oto mishum de gamar b'libay liknas, because he made up his mind to acquire it, kanav and ischayev b'maiser. But even if he made up his mind, he didn't tell this to the seller. Says the Gemara, you're right. Normally, dvarim shebelev einon dvarim. Things in your heart are not binding. He didn't tell it to the seller. It shouldn't be required. But Amar Rav Oshia, hacha b'yirei shemayim askinan. Here we're talking about a God-fearing person who not only fulfills the commitment of their mouth, not only fulfills matzos v'secha tishma v'asisa, but kigayin Rav Safra the kayim b'nafshei v'doiver emes bilvavai. He tells truth even in his heart. So once he makes up his mind to buy it, therefore he bought it.
Why wasn't it Chayv Meiser to begin with?
What?
From the seller. Wasn't Chayv Meiser from the seller?
No, it's not Chayv Meiser the seller. Until a person takes it into his house, it's not Chayv Meiser. Could snack it.
Someone has to buy it eventually. So it's going to be Chayv Meiser. Why is he taking away from whoever buys it? He now doesn't have to take Meiser because it was a Musa already.
Well, first of all, a guy might buy it. Now, new Mishnah, 4 lines from the bottom. Hasitain. Now, this is a wholesaler. Mikaneach midoisav achad l'shloishim yom. A wholesaler should wipe his measuring vessels once in 30 days. The idea is that a wholesaler uses it a lot, and sticky residue sticks on it once a month. Or balabayis, but a regular house, balabas, he doesn't have such traffic, he doesn't have such a build-up. She only has to wipe it off once a year. Reb Shimon Gamliel says just the opposite. A wholesaler, since it's used so often, there isn't a build-up. But a homeowner who uses it rarely, the build-up happens quicker. The wholesaler, since he uses it a lot, the next one takes off the residue of the one before it, so therefore the buildup only happens after a longer time. Chenveni, a storekeeper, mekaneach midoisav pamayim b'Shabbos. A storekeeper, he has to wipe his measures twice a week. Now, the reason is because if you remember, we said a storekeeper doesn't have to let 3 drops come out. And therefore, since he doesn't have to let 3 drops come out, there's much quicker buildup. So he has to wipe it twice a week. And he has to wipe his weights. They used 2 pans with the weights in 1 pan. And since he's dealing with sticky materials, the weights gather stickiness. He has to wipe his weights pamachas b'Shabbos, once a week. Umekaneach moznayim, and the pan of the scale that takes the merchandise, he has to wipe al kol mishkal u'mishkal, after each weight. Amar Shimon Gamliel, ba'med v'amramun balach, with something moist, because that leaves a residual trace. Aval b'yovesh, but if something is dry, ain't it tzara. Now, we know that when you use, some of us still remember in the fruit store or in the fish store using the pans. I still remember when Marshall was on one of the sides of the pan. Are you using it in your store?
No, I go to a regular store.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay.
Put the thumb on it, right?
And not only that, a lot of time if you did spinach, you didn't give no back. It's old newspaper, you wrapped it up.
So anyway, so the grocer would not give an even scale, but he would allow it to tilt in the benefit of the buyer. The chayiv lachriya loy tefach. He gives him a tilt of a tefach. Now that's a very big tilt. A tefach is close to 3 inches. So a tilt of 3 inches is a very big tilt. We'll see when do you have to give such a tilt. Now, if he doesn't give the tilt, but makes it even, then noisen like gerumen, instead of allowing it to tilt, he has to give the buyer extra. How much extra? Echad la'asara balach, 1/10 by moist things. Ve'echad la'esrim biyavish, and 1/20, 1 to 20 in case of dry. But we'll see what this means. The Gemara is not going to be clear what this means. 1/10, 1/20. Mokum shenagu lamoid bedaka. If the minig was to measure with a small measuring vessel, you know, there's 6 kav in a saw. So sometimes they would use a small measuring vessel of a kav. And sometimes they would use a big measuring vessel of a saw. So makom shenagu lamad bedaka lo yamad begasa. If the minig was to use a kav measuring vessel, they couldn't use a saw measuring vessel. Now when you use a kav vessel, every time they measured, they gave a little extra. So if the minig was to use a kav measure, then if you're buying a saw, he has to measure it 6 times. He has to give 6 times a little extra. So then, lo yamad begasa, you can't switch it to a big one. Begasa, if the minig was to use a big one, lo yamad bedaka, you can't switch it to a small one. Limchait, if the minig was to level off, then lo yigdash, you don't do a heap. Ligdash, if the minig was to give a heap, lo yimchait, you can't level it off.
It goes
Above, right.
the lip of the...
Above the lip. Now the Gemara says, where do we see from over here, from the Torah, that you have to tilt the scale in the benefit of the buyer? So Minani Mili. Amarei Shlakish, the Amakra, Evan Shlema V'Tzedek. Evan is a weight. It should be perfect and righteous. So once it's perfect, obviously it's righteous. So therefore, what do we learn from V'Tzedek? Tzadek Mishalcha, do righteous from your own V'Teinloi. Says Gemara, Ihachi, if so, if you're telling me that you have to tilt the scale from a pasuk, if you measured it equally, nice and like gerumen, you have to give him extra. If tilting is biblical, then how could you not do it? So it can't be that tilting is biblical. It's talking about that was the custom of the place. The chiyemar dereish lakish is a sefer. How do you know if you sell it evenly that you have to give extra? If you're giving it evenly, you don't tilt the scale. Nice and like gerumen. So minadi mili, where do we see that we have to give extra to the buyer? Because it says Evan Shlema V'Tzedek. Tzadek mishalcha, be righteous from yours, v'teinla. The kama gerumen, how much is the extra? Amar Rabbi Abba bar Marmal, Amar Rav, echad me'asara belitra belach. 1/10 of a liter. Balach la'asara litrin, to 10 liter. 1/10 of a liter to 10 liter, which is 1/100th. Now it says echad la'asara balach, as we welcome in Bruce Eisenberg for our 26th Zoomer of the evening. 26 is Gematria Yud Kei Vav Kei, so that's a very nice number.
Do we have an opening for a quick question?
No. Says the Gemara, Echad la'asar balach. You know, Rabbi said depends from who. But Echad la'asar balach, no, seriously, it's, let me first finish the Gemara. Echad la'asar balach, the Echad la'esrim b'yavesh, 1/10 when it's moist, and 1/20th when it's dry. Now this 1/10 and 1/20th is not clear. So Ibayalu, Heichi Kamer, what does this mean? Echon me'asar balach la'asar dolach is 1/10 of a liter to 10 liters. Ve'echon me'esrim b'yavish le'esrim d'yavish, and 1/20th of a liter in dry to 20 liters. Oidilma echad me'asar la'asar, 1/10 to 10, dalach, and 1/10 and 1/10 per 20 of yavish. So is it 1/10 of 10 liter and 1/20 of 20 liter, or 1/10 of 10 liter by moist and 1/10 of 20 liter by dry? So on this the Gemara says take it. We don't know. Now, Amar Rebbe Levi, Kasha einshan shel midas yoser me einshan shel arayis. This is very interesting. The penalty for having false weights is worse than the penalty of immorality, of promiscuous relationships. Sherzeh nema bahem el, by immorality it says ale without the hay. V'zeh nema bahen, and by weights it says Ayla. Now, of course, the word Ale and Ayla means these, but Ale also means mighty, like the Almighty. And therefore, by the weights, it says a fuller Ayla, to say it's even a mightier sin. So the Gemara says, "Oh my mashman the high El kasha," that El also means serious. The strong people of the land he took. So the Gemara says, yeah, but you know by immorality also says Eila. So he says, no, that Eila is a miyut, to tell me that there's no chorus by the Isser of weights. There's chorus, spiritual death by immorality, like sleeping with a sister, but there's no chorus for false weights. It's only a lav. So then the Gemara says, well, if Arayas has chorus and Midas doesn't have chorus, it's only a lav, what does it mean that the einish is worst? Says the problem is by weights it's hard to do tshuva. Because if a grocer cheated with weights, he has no idea how many hundreds of customers came in. There's no way to return to them. The Gemara discusses other places in Shas, what does a person do if he wants to do tshuva? The Gemara says that he does a benefit for the public. Like he makes a svarim library. So he hopes that he'll be able to benefit all the people that he cheated.
You do tshuva for rice?
Sure, you can do tshuva for rice. do tshuva, and you say you'll never return to it, and the Rambam says when he meets the same woman again with the same passion, and he doesn't do it, that makes his tshuva complete. But of course you could do tshuva for our eyes. Says the Gemara, the Hosam efshe b'tshuva. By a royis, it's possible to repent. V'achal lo efshe b'tshuva, because he doesn't know how many people he stole from. Now, the Gemara tells us another amazing thing. V'amar Reb Levi. I don't know what's happening. Marshall is signaling like he's jumping out of his chair. Must have had a few extra bourbons tonight. V'amar Reb Levi. Kasha gezel hedyet yoisim gezel gvoy. Again, this does not sound, this is counterintuitive. It's worse to steal from a commoner than to steal from Hashem, from Hektish. Shezeh hiktem chet lemeila. When you steal from people, it says the sin before the trespass. V'nefesh kisecha te'omal amal ba'Hashem b'kichesh ba'amitai b'pikadon. He denies a deposit, or yisasumas yam, or a loan, or begazel, or theft. So there, by a commoner, it says the sin before the milah. V'zeh hiktem mi'ila l'chet. But by Hektish, it first says Nefesh Kisimel Mal, and only after the trespass it says V'chata Shkaga Mikachi Hashem. Now, why is that? The reason why that is that when you misappropriate something from a person, it's already a sin. It's already a sin. By Hektish, even if you take it, until you benefit from a pruta, wherever you take it, it's still by Hashem. Because La Hashem ha'oretz ha'malaya. To Hashem is the world and its fullness. So therefore, by Hektish, you have to be moyel, you have to benefit a pruta before it could be considered a chay. By a human, as soon as you take it, you're considered a thief, even before you benefit from it. Now, we're going to stop over here.